Hello and welcome. My name is Maria Borgoff and welcome to the Science of Ecstasy and Empathy. So I'm going to give you a short introduction video into my methods as a coach and a teacher and an artist. So when you hear the word ecstasy, go ahead and take a moment. Maybe say the word out loud or just hear it mentally, ecstasy. What are the thoughts and feelings and images that come to the surface of your mind? What do you think of when you hear the word ecstasy? Most often, we think of something that is pleasurable. Maybe you even associate the word ecstasy with joy or happiness. But ecstasy is actually rooted in the Greek word ekstasis, which literally means standing outside oneself. Pretty cool, yeah? So what this means is that ecstasy is not defined by a pleasurable experience. It's not even defined by just a painful experience. What it really means is that it is measuring the level of intensity. So when we have intense experiences, pleasurable or painful, when we have these intense experiences where we feel as if we're standing outside of ourselves, that is ecstasy. So what's happening in the brain and the body when we have those intense experiences? Well, there are three major hormones, chemical organic substances that are being released by our brain so that we can have those experiences of pain and pleasure. And it's the amount of these hormones, dopamine, adrenaline, and serotonin. It's the amount of these that create those intense ecstatic experiences. But what they function, their basic function is to help us to see rewards, to take action, to cause a physical response to those rewards or that threat of danger, a physical response so that we take action to go get that reward or to run away from danger. And serotonin is actually the hormone that allows us to perceive if we have accomplished the goal, if we have gotten the reward, or if we have dodged a threat of danger, if we have found safety. So serotonin is what is being released when we accomplish things and when we get that pleasure or when we avoid that pain. But again, it's the intensity, it's the amount of these hormones that are being released in the brain that allow us to feel ecstasy. And I like to think of it as we are having so many of those hormones being released that we can't contain them all in our tiny body. And so it's that experience that it's almost spilling over, and so we feel as if we're standing outside of ourselves, witnessing ourselves having that intense experience. So go ahead and maybe recall a time in the past, or maybe a particular activity that you partake in that gives you that feeling of ecstasy, that gives you that feeling that you are watching yourself having this intense experience. So if you can't think of anything, that's all right. For a personal example, the first thing that I think of is a painful experience, and typically it's when I first got my heart broken. So I felt so much emotional pain, so much physical pain, and it was so much, it was kind of bubbling over me that I felt as if I was standing outside of myself, watching myself have this painful experience. Another example, positive one, is when I am laughing intensely and I just can't stop laughing and laughing so hard, and I bubble up with all of that joy and that pleasure, and I feel as if I'm standing outside watching myself have this experience. So we can have ecstatic experiences in any human activity. Sometimes people get it when they are hiking or climbing a mountain and they get to the top and they have that moment of ecstasy. Sometimes people get it in meditation or when they go see live music and they're in this big space with all these people dancing to the same music. Sometimes people get it from a yoga class or going to an art museum. So there's all these different activities that we can be a part of that will help us to experience that natural, ecstatic state that our brain can trigger. So, empathy. Now, what does this word mean? Well, at the Greek root of empathy is pathos, meaning feeling. So we understand empathy to be when we can experience someone else's emotional behavior or emotional response. So someone else is feeling something, and I witness them having that experience, and then I too feel it myself. So in the brain and the body, what's happening when we feel empathetic, when we feel someone's pain or we feel someone's pleasure, but it's not directly happening to us, our mirror neurons are being triggered. So mirror neurons are brain cells or nerve cells that allow our external world to be reflected in our internal world. So it's the mirror neurons that allow us to feel the emotions of someone else. So it's also really important to understand that mirror neurons don't just live in the brain, right? So our nerve cells or brain cells, we call them brain cells, but they actually live in our whole nervous system, which extends from our head and our brain down through our spinal column, out through our limbs, into our fingers and our toes. So we have mirror neurons in our whole body. And so when we see someone stub their toe, it's not our brain that hurts. You feel it in your toe. Your toe hurts because you too have felt that feeling of pain in your toe. And so you kind of maybe grab your toe and say, "Ooh, I'm so sorry, are you okay?" So that's an empathetic physical response. It's really important to understand that empathy is typically a physical response. So go ahead and again, recall a time where you feel that empathetic response, where you feel someone else's emotional experience as your own physical experience. If you can think of something, great. If not, that's okay too. You can always reflect on this later. So as a personal example, sometimes when I watch TV shows, if someone is doing something embarrassing, I feel embarrassed. Sometimes I even try to cover my eyes, or I even get up and walk out of the room because I say, I just can't handle the embarrassment. I'm embarrassed for them. Now, whether this is a fictional story or a documentary, either way, it doesn't matter. I am seeing someone experiencing embarrassment or that emotion, and I feel it myself. So I have a physical response to it. So a positive one, or a pleasurable example of empathy, is when I see children playing or laughing and being kids. So when I see children with that joy, it makes me smile. Sometimes it even makes me want to go outside and run around and kind of, feel free and, release all of my worries. So that's kind of a physical response that I have when I see children expressing emotional joy and wonder even. So what does ecstasy and empathy have in common? How do these two relate? Well, at the foundation of my work as a relationship coach, as an embodied mindfulness teacher, and as an artist, is the idea that if we can strengthen our mirror neurons, if we can increase our ability and our capacity to experience empathy, then we can directly increase our ability to experience ecstasy. So then, with that idea, we can consciously practice experiencing more pleasure and avoiding pain by practicing more deeply connecting to other people's emotions. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, it all really boils down to relationships. What's your relationship like with yourself? What's your relationship like with your partner or your friend or your boss at work, maybe your coworkers? What's your relationship like with your mother, your parents, maybe your child? So the way that we act in our relationships can really be a beautiful mirror for how we experience empathy and ecstasy. So if you are interested in experiencing more pleasure and experiencing more profound connections in your life through your relationships and on a daily basis, then I would love to talk with you. So thank you for signing up to this video. Thank you for watching it to the end. And since you've made it here, I want to invite you to schedule a free discovery call with me. And in this 45 to 60 minute coaching session, we're going to get on the phone or maybe on Skype, and I'm going to help you pinpoint 1 or 2 major obstacles that are stopping you from experiencing the ecstasy that you desire, from experiencing the pleasure and the beautiful, profound relationships that you want to have. And then from pinpointing that obstacle, together we're going to design an action plan, or I like to call it designing a practice for you to then implement every day. It could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour long, whatever works for you. Together we'll design a practice so that you can start to exercise empathy and increase ecstasy. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, then go ahead and click the button below this video. Sign up. You can pick a time and a date that works for you. We'll get on the phone and we'll design a practice just for you. So go ahead and click the button, and I'll talk with you soon.